Welcome to our channel and to a brand new story. Today, we are going to explore the life of a true revolutionary. We will talk about a man who didn't just build a company, he built an empire of innovation. I am talking about the legendary co-founder of Apple, the one and only Steve Jobs. Many of you are likely watching this very video on a device he helped create. It could be an iPhone, an iPad, or a MacBook. These products didn't just appear, they were born from the mind of a genius. He was a visionary, a master salesman, and a perfectionist. But his path was not paved with gold. His life is a dramatic story of ambition, struggle, failure, and an unbelievable comeback. It is a story that proves that falling down is not the end. In this video, we will journey through his entire life, from his humble beginnings to his global impact. The goal is to inspire you and help you learn English through his incredible story. So, if you are ready to be inspired, let's begin this journey together. Our story begins on February 24, 1955. On that day, Stephen Paul Jobs was born in San Francisco, California. His biological parents were Abdul Fattah Jandali and Joanne Schiebel. They were both graduate students at the University of Wisconsin. At that time, they were young, unmarried, and not ready for a child. They felt that they couldn't provide the stable home a baby deserved. So they made the heart-wrenching decision to put their son up for adoption. Joanne, his biological mother, had one very specific condition. She insisted that her son must be adopted by college graduates. A lawyer and his wife were initially chosen to adopt the baby, but at the last minute they decided they wanted a girl. So the next couple on the waiting list was called. Their names were Paul and Clara Jobs. Paul Jobs was a high school dropout who worked as a mechanic and a carpenter. Clara Jobs had not finished college either. When Joanne found this out, she refused to sign the final adoption papers. She was adamant about her condition. Paul and Clara were desperate for a child. They made a solemn promise to Joanne. They promised that they would save money and send the boy to college. Only after hearing this promise did Joanne finally relent and sign the papers. This promise would shape Steve's future in unexpected ways. The Jobs family lived in Mountain View, California. This area would later become the heart of the tech world, known as Silicon Valley. His father, Paul, was a skilled craftsman. He had a workshop in their garage. Paul taught young Steve how to work with his hands, building and deconstructing electronics. He taught him the importance of craftsmanship and paying attention to detail. Paul would say that the back of a cabinet should be as beautiful as the front. This lesson about perfection stuck with Steve for his entire life. In school, Steve was extremely bright but also quite rebellious. He was often bored with formal education and classes. He preferred to learn things on his own terms. He was known for playing pranks and challenging his teachers. His teachers had to bribe him with money and candy to get him to study. Despite his behavior, his intelligence was undeniable. His elementary school recommended that he skip 2 grades. His parents, however, only agreed to let him skip 1. This early life shows a boy who was curious, independent, and unwilling to follow the rules. It was the first sign of the man who would think different. In 1971, a crucial meeting took place. A friend introduced Steve Jobs to Steve Wozniak. Wozniak, or Woz, was 5 years older and was an electronics genius. He could design computer circuits better than anyone. Jobs was the visionary with big ideas, while Woz was the brilliant engineer who could build them. They instantly connected over their shared love for electronics and pranks. Their first collaboration was building and selling blue boxes. These illegal devices could make free long-distance phone calls. It was a risky venture, but it showed them they could build a product and sell it. After high school, Jobs enrolled in Reed College in Oregon. It was a very expensive liberal arts college. His parents were spending all their life savings on his tuition. After just one semester, Jobs decided to drop out. He didn't see the value in the expensive classes he was taking. However, he didn't leave the campus entirely. He became a drop-in student, attending only the classes that interested him. He had no dorm room, so he slept on the floor in his friends' rooms. To earn money for food, he would collect and return Coke bottles. He would walk 7 miles across town every Sunday to get a free meal at the Hare Krishna temple. During this period, he took a calligraphy class. He learned about different typefaces, about serifs and sans serif fonts. He found it artistically beautiful and fascinating. At the time, it seemed like a useless skill for his future. But this knowledge would prove to be priceless a decade later. In 1974, Jobs traveled to India seeking spiritual enlightenment. The trip profoundly changed his perspective on life. When he returned, he was a different person with a new focus. Wozniak, in the meantime, had designed a brilliant personal computer circuit board. He was showing it off to his friends at the Homebrew Computer Club. Jobs saw its potential immediately. He realized this wasn't just a hobby, it could be a real product. Jobs convinced Wozniak that they should start a company to sell the computer. In 1976, on April Fool's Day, Apple Computer was born. Jobs was 21 and Woz was 26. They started the company in the garage of Jobs' parents' home. Their first product was the Apple I. It was essentially just a motherboard. Users had to provide their own keyboard, monitor, and case. They built them by hand and sold around 200 units. It was a very modest beginning. But then came the Apple II in 1977. The Apple II was a fully assembled, user-friendly personal computer. It had a plastic case and color graphics. It was a revolutionary product for its time. The Apple II became a phenomenal success. It made personal computing accessible to everyday people in schools. Apple's sales skyrocketed from thousands to millions of dollars. The company grew at an incredible pace. By 1980, when Apple went public, Steve Jobs was a multi-millionaire at the age of 25. The boy from the garage had become a star of the new tech industry. With massive success came massive pressure. Apple was no longer a small startup in a garage. It was a large corporation that needed professional management. The board of directors felt that Jobs was too young and volatile to run the company. So, in 1983, Jobs decided to hire an experienced CEO. He set his sights on John Sculley, the president of Pepsi-Cola. Sculley was a marketing genius. Initially, Sculley was hesitant to leave his prestigious job. To convince him, Jobs asked him a legendary question. He said, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" The question worked. Sculley joined Apple as its CEO. At the same time, Jobs was leading a new, top-secret project. It was a project very close to his heart, the Macintosh. Jobs wanted the Macintosh to be a masterpiece. He famously said he wanted it to be insanely great. He assembled a small, elite team of engineers and designers. They worked like pirates, separate from the rest of Apple. They even flew a pirate flag over their building. Jobs was an incredibly demanding and passionate leader. He pushed his team to their absolute limits, working day and night. He obsessed over every single detail, from the shape of the icons to the sound the computer made. The Macintosh was finally launched in 1984 with a spectacular high-budget commercial. It was the first mass-market computer with a graphical user interface and a mouse. It was beautiful and easy to use. However, it had a major flaw. It was underpowered and, more importantly, very expensive. After a strong initial launch, sales began to decline sharply. The disappointing sales created huge tension inside Apple. This led to a growing conflict between the two leaders, Jobs and Sculley. They had completely different visions for the company's future. Sculley was focused on profits and stability. Jobs was focused on innovation, no matter the cost. The conflict escalated into a power struggle for control of the company. Scully went to the board of directors and presented his case. The board, concerned about the company's financial performance, decided to side with Scully. In a dramatic boardroom showdown, they stripped Jobs of all his operational duties. And then, in May of 1985, the unthinkable happened. Steve Jobs, the man who had created Apple in his garage, was effectively fired. He was just 30 years old. He later said he felt devastated and publicly out. He felt he had let down the previous generation of entrepreneurs. For most people, this would have been the end of their career. But Steve Jobs was not most people. This crushing failure would become the unexpected catalyst for his greatest work. He said the heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. After a few months of soul-searching, Jobs decided he still loved to build things. He was not going to give up. In 1985, he founded a new company called Next. He took a few of his most loyal Apple employees with him. The goal of Next was to build powerful computers for universities and scientists. The Next computer, often called the Cube, was technologically brilliant. It was years ahead of its time in terms of software and hardware. However, just like the Macintosh, it was extremely expensive. As a result, Next computers never sold well. The company struggled financially for years. While Next was not a commercial success, its innovative software would later become incredibly important. But that wasn't the only thing Jobs was working on. In 1986, he made another move. He bought a small computer graphics division from Lucasfilm, the company of George Lucas. He purchased it for $10 million, investing $10 million, investing $5 million of his own money. He renamed this small company Pixar. Initially, Pixar's business was selling high-end imaging computers, but that business was also failing. Jobs poured millions of his own money into Pixar just to keep it alive. Pixar had a small animation department that created short films to showcase the computer's power. This department was led by a man named John Lasseter. Jobs saw the true potential of Pixar was not in hardware, but in storytelling. He decided to pivot the company to focus entirely on computer-animated films. It was an enormous risk. Pixar signed a deal with Disney to produce the first-ever feature-length computer-animated movie. After years of hard work, that movie was released in 1995. It was called Toy Story. Toy Story was a monumental success, both critically and commercially. It changed the animation industry forever. Pixar suddenly became a global brand, famous for its creativity and storytelling. When Pixar went public, the value of Jobs' stock made him a billionaire. The man who had been fired and publicly humiliated was now more successful than ever. His time in the wilderness had taught him valuable lessons about management and partnership. His journey was far from over. In fact, the most dramatic chapter was yet to begin. While Jobs was building Next and Pixar, Apple was in serious trouble. Without its visionary founder, the company had lost its way. It was plagued by a confusing product line, declining market share, and a lack of innovation. By 1997, Apple was bleeding money. The company was just months away from bankruptcy. The media was already writing Apple's obituary. In a desperate move to save the company, Apple's board made a stunning decision. They decided to acquire Next for $429 million. The real prize of this acquisition was not the technology, but the man behind it. And so, in 1997, 12 years after being forced out, Steve Jobs returned to Apple. He came back initially as an advisor. But the company was in chaos, and soon the board asked him to become the interim CEO, or ICO. Jobs accepted and immediately began to make drastic changes. He was ruthless in his effort to simplify the company. He famously reviewed Apple's entire product line and slashed 70% of it. He wanted to focus on just a few products and make them great. He also forged a shocking new partnership with Apple's arch-rival, Microsoft. He knew Apple needed Microsoft software to survive. To signal a new era, he launched the iconic Think Different advertising campaign. It celebrated rebels and visionaries, reminding the world what Apple stood for.
Then, in 1998, he unveiled his first major product since his return. It was the iMac. The iMac was a colorful, all-in-one computer that looked like nothing else on the market. It was designed to make accessing the internet easy and fun. The iMac was a massive hit. It sold millions of units. It didn't just sell well, it made Apple profitable again and saved the company from collapse. Apple was back. But Jobs was just getting started. He then began one of the most incredible product runs in corporate history. In 2001, he saw that digital music was messy and complicated. His response was the iPod, a sleek device that put 1,000 songs in your pocket. The iPod, combined with the iTunes software, revolutionized the entire music industry. In 2007, he took the stage to announce a product that would change the world. He described it as 3 revolutionary products in one. It was a widescreen iPod with touch controls. It was a revolutionary mobile phone. And it was a breakthrough internet communications device. This was the iPhone. The iPhone completely reinvented the concept of a phone and created the modern smartphone market. Finally, in 2010, he introduced the iPad. He created a whole new category of device between a laptop and a smartphone. Each of these products was introduced to the world through his legendary keynote presentations. He was a master showman on stage. Under his second tenure, Apple transformed from a near-bankrupt company into the most valuable technology company in the world. His comeback was complete. It remains the greatest turnaround in business history. Behind this story of incredible public success was a private and difficult battle. In 2004, doctors diagnosed Steve Jobs with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. Although he initially tried to treat it with alternative medicine, he eventually had surgery. He fought the disease with courage and determination for many years. His illness gave him a profound perspective on life and death. In 2005, he shared some of this wisdom with the world. He delivered the commencement address at Stanford University. This speech is now considered one of the most inspiring of all time. He told 3 stories from his life. The first story was about connecting the dots looking backward. He explained how dropping out and taking that calligraphy class led to the beautiful fonts on the Mac. The second story was about love and loss. He talked about his love for his work and how getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have happened to him. The third story was about death. He explained that remembering you are going to die is the best way to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. He concluded his speech with 4 powerful words. He urged the graduates to stay hungry, stay foolish. These words have become a mantra for entrepreneurs and dreamers everywhere. Over the next few years, his health continued to decline. In August 2011, he officially resigned as CEO of Apple. He passed the baton to his longtime deputy, Tim Cook. On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs passed away peacefully at his home. He was only 56 years old. The world mourned the loss of a modern-day Thomas Edison or Henry Ford. Tributes poured in from around the globe. His legacy is not just in the products he created. It is in the industries he transformed: personal computers, animated movies, music, mobile phones, and digital publishing. His ultimate legacy is his philosophy, a belief in the power of passion, simplicity, and insanely great products. He proved that one person with a vision can indeed change the world. So, what are the final lessons from the incredible life of Steve Jobs? First, you have to find what you love. As he said, your work is going to fill a large part of your life, so you must love what you do. Second, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of it. Third, always think differently. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo and create your own path. Fourth, focus and simplicity matter. It's harder to make something simple than to make it complex. Fifth, pay attention to the details. Perfection and craftsmanship are not small things, they are everything. And finally, remember that your time is limited. Live each day with purpose and passion. I truly hope this story has inspired you today. I also hope that following along has helped you improve your English listening and vocabulary.
If you enjoyed this video and found it valuable, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends who might also need a dose of inspiration. And most importantly, please subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Thank you so much for your time and for watching until the end. Until the next video, keep learning and, as Steve would say, stay hungry, stay foolish. Goodbye.